you could take this to the bank. Anytime Neil Stratton comes on, he's going to add value to our show. We're happy to have him here each and every Thursday on the State of Football, 9:40 a.m. Eastern every Thursday at Inside the League. We just got done touting the book, Scout Speak, that you see there behind me. Of course, Neil, the author, his second book, Moving the Chains. If you want to go kind of behind the scenes, the draft process, I advise any new agent, any parent, any player about to enter this draft process. That book is going to be worth its weight in salt. And so we have Neil Stratton here. Make sure you go check out succeedinfootball.com for his insight and analysis. And Neil, welcome into the rodeo show. We've got David Turner today, minus John Murphy, who's dealing with the hurricane, and you're not too far west of that. So hopefully you're in dry land down there in Houston.
I'll tell you, it's been pretty relentless for the New Orleans area over the last few months. We've been fortunate here in Houston. We've gotten a little bit of rain, maybe a little bit of wind, but for the most part, nothing. They hadn't laid a glove on us. I feel terrible for the people in the Delta who are my homies. I'm from South Louisiana myself, so we're lifting prayers for those guys for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We are thinking about them heavily. We alluded to that in the show open. We also alluded to the cancellation of the East-West Shrine game. We had Dane Vandernat on to discuss the impact and analysis. We also spoke about what it means for the NFL PA Collegiate Bowl, which we'll also get into. But let's start off with that East-West Shrine Bowl. Neil, they had, I think 85 guys or 90 guys on NFL rosters from last year's event. So this is obviously a big part of the evaluation process. We've been discussing the lack of measurables. There was no junior days. Now scouts are not allowed to go in and talk to the players, really. Talk to some coaches, but not really getting their hands on players. And when you take away the interview process, when you take away the measurables, this is going to leave a huge void for this upcoming draft cycle, more so than last year, where we only saw pro days being canceled. Now we have our first major all-star event canceled.
I spent yesterday afternoon kind of texting with a lot of scouting friends, and it's interesting because it seems like the attitude right now, Rick, is almost that they just want to get a good combine in. If they can get a good combine in with their top 300 odd players, 350, whatever, and they can kind of look at those guys, then they feel like they've got a fighting chance. It's almost as if, to some degree, teams have kind of waved the white flag on the All-Star season, and that really is disturbing to me because I know how much it means to the business. I know how much it means to people like you and me who work for All-Star games. And but more than anything else, there's just a lot of players who are going to lose opportunities because they didn't go to the Power 5 school, or they didn't play the marquee position, or they didn't get the recognition maybe that players would normally get in a regular season, one that wasn't affected by the virus. So it's just a really lamentable situation for everyone involved, and especially for people like the three of us and everyone who's on this call who kind of care about the game behind the game.
Well, and also I remember when I was at Texas versus the Nation game, I saw TJ Lang down there for the first time. I mean, I brought him back. He played 4 of the 5 positions at the Texas Nation game. Wasn't East-West Shrine, NFL PA, or Senior Bowl. But by making an impression there, he got an invite to the East-West Shrine game to go up against bigger competition and then show he can do it. And, what is he, a 15-year vet right now or something? I mean, he's a guy that's been in the league forever. I brought him back to the O-line coach at the time, and I said, hey, take a look at this guy. And he was just like, well, he's such a young school. He was only at Texas Nation game. Mm-hmm. But then when he went to the East-West Shrine, he did look at him mm-hmm. because now he became an East-West Shrine invite. He became a legit guy. They use that as a benchmark, right? Mm-hmm. And without that game, we don't, like Rick alluded to earlier in the show, with COVID and everything, we don't know where we're going to be. So we don't know what's going to happen with Senior Bowl, even though they keep tweeting out that things are going to be good. We don't know what it's going to look like. And even the combine, we don't know. Neil, you can imagine they're not going to send every scout to the combine. It's going to be like a virtual combine, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing about, for most fans, they're thinking, what's the big deal? I mean, Trevor Lawrence is going to be fine, right? But the people that, have to populate special teams, and people have to have your backup offensive lineman and all those kinds of things, those guys matter. And when your favorite player goes down in week 7 and you don't have a ready backup, then you're in big trouble. And what is it? 30 or 40% of the league at any time is undrafted free agents. I mean, this is a league. NFL scouting is not like maybe baseball scouting or basketball scouting. It is heavily dependent upon eyes, and it's not easily done by metrics. And so it's very important to evaluate those players when they can go and put pads on and work out against guys that are kind of in their station as a player. Body type is important too. I mean, we've all been to weigh-ins, hundreds of weigh-ins, and scouts get to see these guys parade around in their underwear. It sounds like a kind of a silly thing, but it matters a lot to scouts to be able to see if a guy's really developed, if he's been working his 4 years in college, or if he's just kind of a big, kind of lumpy guy who's been able to get by because of the lack of competition that he's faced. So many things go into these all-star games, and if you've been to one, and I'm sure most people that are on this call have, you realize what an important part of this process it is. So, again, will football go on? Of course. Will there be a combine? Hopefully. And will the best players be there? Yes. But there are still a lot of aspects of this game that will be felt, especially to the evaluators, to the agents, and especially to the players that wouldn't get opportunities otherwise. And that's the really disappointing part of all this.
Yeah, I mean, just go back and look at last year's draft. I would be curious to know how many players were actually drafted that didn't get verified measurables, aka weren't at an all-star game, weren't at a combine, that actually got drafted. I would imagine that number was an all-time low. We had an all-time low FCS. I mean, the year before was an all-time low at 18, and it went from 18 down to 6. I mean, that's drastic. Right. And the other good point that Justin Van Fulpen made this week, we posted it on the NFLDraftBible.com, how COVID is impacting the draft process, Neil. So the NCAA has now granted an extra year of eligibility to every single player. So my understanding is that technically everybody has to declare for the draft. They're all considered underclassmen.
Absolutely.
That underclassmen deadline doesn't occur until mid-January.
Right.
So, if you're an FCS guy that wants to play your spring season, you've now got to make a clear-cut decision. Do I want to go pro, or do I want to play the spring season and enter next year's draft? And when you take away all-star games, there are less avenues for small school guys to get seen and measured and verified. I have a strong feeling that a lot of FCS guys are going to opt back to play and return. The Trey Lances of the world, they're going to be an exception to the rule. But what do you make of this, kind of underclassmen rule where technically scouts can't even speak to players until they officially declare? So even if there was an all-star game, say pre-January 15th, scouts technically wouldn't even be allowed to be there.
Well, typically during a typical year, January 18th is around, I think, is the date this year. And it's usually right after the midpoint of January. NFL teams can't evaluate any players until after, any underclassmen until after that date. Now that all players technically are underclassmen, there can't be any all-star games held before then. So typically the College Gridiron Showcase, the game that I'm a part of, is before then. The Tropical Bowl, which I always attend in Daytona Beach, is before then. Typically, the Shrine game is 3 days in at that point. Typically, your game is 3 days in at that point. I mean, I don't know if your guys report on Saturday or Sunday, but it's a seismic shift to the All-Star process, this move to essentially make everyone juniors. And I don't know if there's going to be some kind of a way that the NCAA is going to try to go in and reconcile that or change things a little bit. But as things stand, it is a major, major shift, and we probably are going to see All-Star games move. Well, we have to see All-Star games moving later, at least the ones that are still standing. But right now it seems like, again, that they're falling by the minute, and again, it's just a really disappointing development for people who are in the game, especially these players.
Well, talking with Nagy at the Senior Bowl, he had said if the combine's not going to move their combine date, it would be very hard for him to move his date, because agents don't want the players to come play down there or participate in anything down there and then have to go like right into, go up to the combine. They want to go play and then get some combine training.
They're the last week of January, so they're kind of after that. That's the one game that is in the clear.
Well, that's in the clear, but I'm just saying, like, if the other games start pushing back or doing different things, how would that affect Senior Bowl? And will it affect Senior Bowl, stuff like that? But like you guys said that this ripple,
right? They're talking about a 2-week event.
Yeah.
So now, if you do move an All-Star game later, you might be competing with the Senior Bowl, right?
Great point.
Yeah.
Great point. Yeah, to me, the Senior Bowl is kind of the nucleus of the All-Star landscape this year, and everyone else kind of plays off of them. I don't know, if they go to the 2-week thing, that is going to really change things. But again, if the players that typically aren't in the Senior Bowl are, I don't want to say lesser, but they're not of the same stature as Senior Bowl players. So they're going to have to kind of fit in after the Senior Bowl. I don't know if the Senior Bowl is planning on expanding its rosters. I don't know what the answer is. And Rick, maybe you have insight on that I don't have, or maybe you do, David. I don't know. Right now, I think it's reasonable to wonder if we're going to have pro days this year. And that could be a major, major setback for players as well. It looks like right now, all things being equal, if you don't go to the combine, you may not get a workout. And that is just, again, devastating to a lot of players that otherwise would have real chances to live out their dreams and play in the NFL.
And another point, as we're kind of brainstorming this out loud here on the fly on the state of football, David Turner, Neil Stratton, technically, Senior Bowl doesn't have to abide by the NFLPA protocol, which is what? 5 days of self-quarantine, pass X amount of tests before you can even conduct the weigh-in. That's how it would be for the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. And Neil, I know you missed our earlier portion with Dane Vandernatt. We haven't made a definitive decision. We're not going to leave the players high and dry. We know that much. So we will have some kind of an event in a shape or form of something. We just don't know yet. Obviously, a decision has to be made soon. We're 3 months away. But I'm wondering too, David, put your NFL Goopalini on as a front office exec. Like, if the Senior Bowl doesn't abide by those NFLPA protocols, like the players show up, we scan your head, take your temperature, same day test, go hang out in your room for a couple hours until, you come back negative, and we'll see you on the field tomorrow. I'm wondering how safe are the teams going to feel about sending scouts or GMs even attending an event if they don't do the protocol that's been enacted?
Well, I would feel that the NFLPA or the NFL would give their advisory not to attend, and because that puts their current employees in jeopardy of exposure to COVID in a way in which they're completely trying to protect themselves from. And it's just like, then you walk back in your building and you have to do these stringent COVID testing, and you walk out and you don't. So for me, I think it's a situation where if you have an all-star game like this and you're trying to send your guys out to do an all-star appearance or a scouting thing, that they wouldn't allow them to go if it wasn't a very strict process to test these guys and ensure a safe bubble environment. And I think the 2-week thing shows that maybe the Senior Bowl is going to try to do a bubble environment during those 2 weeks and get these guys on the field with pads and in a safe environment for them. If it was just like a straight walk in, take your temperature, and we'll see you tomorrow, I don't think the NFL would allow their personnel guys to attend and in person. Now they can stream it, go live. They can do different things where they can get, cameras and do that. But as far as sending their employees to do it under the current CBA rules and agreements with the players associations, it does include like not having the staff be exposed to stuff like this. So, I don't think they would be allowed to go.
And David, if I could add to that, that's the message I got loud and clear when I was reaching out to scouts yesterday, is that they're not going to do anything until the NFL gives the go-ahead. And another point to make, as we've gone to more of the Patriots model in scouting, where the young guys go out and gather facts and the older guys make the decisions, you're talking about a lot of guys that are in that sensitive area, 60 plus, that typically would be at these all-star games. And maybe not the lesser tier ones, but certainly the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Game, which we know is canceled, the NFLPA Bowl. Those guys are going to be very wary, I think, of going out and being among people. Y'all have all been at these All-Star games. It's like, masses of humanity. So, that's another, again, strike against all these kids that would love to have opportunities, but just may not get them this year. I can't wait to see how the combine tackles this, because everywhere you go, there are crowds, and it's almost impossible to keep people at 6 feet away in some of these areas. Maybe once they get to Lucas Oil Stadium when they're watching workouts, that's a different situation. But even then, most people want to be lined up with that, the finish line of the 40, so they can get that, the most precise number. It's just fraught with possibilities, and most of them are good ones.
And I think the combine has to stagger the players in. Again, if they're going to abide by the NFLPA protocol, this adds significant time, money, coordination. I mean, you've now got to fly guys in, put them up in a hotel for 5 days. This is an extravagant cost. I don't care if you're an all-star game, the NFL combine, that's 350 guys that you're now paying an extra 5 nights of hotel rooms for.
Yeah.
Well, and think about the strain on the athlete's body. If they got to go sit in a hotel room for 5 days, right, not train, not really do much, and they got to sit around for 5 days, they can go probably have access to the field to do some running. They can do some stuff, but they're not with their trainer, and maybe not with their dietitian, and everything getting dialed in for these optimal performances that we're asking them to do. And then bam, they go out there and try to perform after 5 days of sitting in a hotel room.
Yeah.
How many injuries are we going to see? Are we going to see a bunch of hamstrings pop, maybe an Achilles or two? Because again, they're taking them out of a normal training routine, asking them to sit around and not do much. And therefore now we're going to wind up seeing some stuff happen. So,
and not to get too far into the weeds, but if you're looking at this from the agent standpoint, you send a kid to an all-star game, you typically you're going to pay for about a 6 to 8 week training period. When you send a kid to an all-star game, you have to pay for that week anyway. Now you're going to pay for an extra week for a kid to sit on his butt for 5 days and go to an all-star game. Now he misses 2 weeks that you pay for. It's tricky. The economics get tricky. Everything gets tricky. I mean, there's just so many different things to think about.
As an investor, which is what agents are, your return on investment last year didn't look so good with that trainer, and the trainers are going to want to kill me. But hey, some of these guys dropped 40, 50 grand, and these guys were then shut out of a pro day. I wonder how many agents are going to be willing to pick up that tab this year. Obviously, the larger agencies can absorb that kind of loss, but I think the haves and the have-nots in this pandemic, that gap continues to go like this. And, nobody reports on that better than Neil Stratton at Inside the League. Of course, tomorrow is the Friday wrap, where he does a great job of recapping the week that was, everything that goes on at Inside the League, Succeed in Football. Fantastic seminars, brother. You've got to communicate with me better about these seminars so I can help spread the word and share the love and get the word out there to the Twitterverse. But, tell us everything that's going on at Inside the League.
Well, let's talk about the Friday wrap first. Tomorrow, we were planning on talking to several former NFL GMs to ask them, if you had a chance, which team do you pick, the Falcons or the Texans? Which one gives you a better chance to win immediately? And I was really excited about that. We got some pretty neat responses. But now with the Shrine Game dropping this week, it changed things. And so now we're going to have a bit more of a flavor of the all-star landscape as well. We'll be talking to Jose. We'll be talking to Michael with the Tropical Bowl. May talk to Dane. Just because so many people are this is what's on everyone's mind. And so we're going to touch on that as well and address that, even though it's just such an evolving landscape. I don't know if we can really come to any real conclusions yet, but at least we can maybe get a better picture of what you're looking at. Tonight we'll be on with Ahmad Russell, former Colts scout, and he'll talk about his experiences in the game. He'll talk about how he got his job, his origin story. And he'll talk about, here's a guy who spent 5 years, I believe, maybe 7 with the Eagles. He spent, I believe, 5 with the Colts. He got to see Howie Roseman in action, one of the top GMs out there. He got to see Chris Ballard in action, another one of the top GMs out there. What were their strengths? What were their weaknesses? How did they differ, and how did they, how were they similar? I can't wait to talk about that. And then, of course, we'll talk about the 2016 draft, which has kind of been our fun part of each hour, and just get his insights and his observations from a wild and wacky year. You know, as we've discussed already, it was a Laramie Tunsil year. Say no more for everyone who's a draft fan, and so many other different angles to that draft that made it unique. And so it'll be a lot of fun. I encourage everyone who's out there who's interested in the game behind the game to register for the Friday Wrap. You can find the link on my Twitter. And if you're interested in kind of hearing the really nuts and bolts of a former scout talk, and we still have room tonight just for $9, you can come in and be part of that, sit in the Zoom room with us and hear him talk about his experiences in the game. Really looking forward to it. That's at 8:00 Eastern time.
I know, that's a Crazy Eddie bargain right there. Make sure you get on that, folks. I mean, what an opportunity, especially if you're into scouting, if you're into the business of football, if you're into the behind-the-scenes stuff. That's phenomenal. Will you have more of these, Niels? I know you had a couple scheduled. You had Doug Whaley last week, I believe.
That's correct. This is our fourth quarter series. We're going to start holding it in the last 3 months of every year, I believe. Our first week was Danton Bartow, who's with the Rams. David, you probably know Bart. He really delivered. I mean, he's such a great guy, and he's an old school football guy. And then you had Doug, who's kind of the other side of the coin, very polished, very measured, very insightful. Tonight's with Ahmad, obviously, and then next week we'll have Raleigh McKenzie, who was with the Raiders. Another great guy who's got all kinds of stories. He had a great NFL career as well. His brother was the GM of the Raiders. I mean, again, everyone brings something a little different to it, and that's what makes it so fun. I mean, I tell people I get the most out of these things than anybody else. I mean, I get to hear these incredible stories, and I get to ask the questions. So, I mean, I'm the one who gets to really scratch his itch more than anybody else, and it's a lot of fun doing it.
It is a lot of fun. I got a chance to sit on a few of these things, and it's definitely worth the price of admission for $9. Jesus, go there now. InsideTheLeague.com, sign up, get that Friday Wrap. Hey, Neil, we always appreciate it every Thursday here on The State of Football, my man.
It's a blast, guys. Thanks so much. Y'all have a great weekend.